Hello there! Welcome back to the Smallville Retrospective. I'm Scotty. You're not. Okay, so I need to explain this. I think I already sort of explained it in an update video, but in case you don't... Oh, that's on the... Okay, in case you don't know. So, you may be wondering, especially if you're watching this in the playlist order, because I'm putting this in the order that this episode comes out, number 15. And so you may be watching, maybe thinking, Scotty's wearing a different shirt than he is in this episode and the next one. Also, he has more hair here than he does in the other episode, in the next one. So you're wondering, previous episode and the next episode, whatever. Right. And the background is different. Yes, so what had happened was, and I already explained this in my update video, but what happened was, one night, I was watching, I looked at my my phone, and I saw there was only 19 videos in the playlist for the Smallville Retrospective. So, I looked it up, missing the pilot, I put that in the playlist, but there's another episode that was missing. And after looking it up, it was 0. Episode 14, 0. And I was baffled as to why. Because I remember recording that episode. It's my favorite episode. I said that in the video. And I remember recording it. Somehow it never got uploaded. So, here we are. I rewatched the episode again. And I'm here to talk about the episode, Season 1, Episode 14, 0. Like I said, this is my favorite episode of the season. Not the entire series, of the season. Favorite episode of this season. So, yeah. And of course, I've been watching / listening to the Smallville Talkville podcast with Mike Rosenbaum and Tom Wheeling. And I've completed all of Season 1, watching and listening. I started listening to them. I listened to the first 7 episodes. And then I started watching them on YouTube afterwards, because they have them on YouTube. They have them on Spotify. So I'm all caught up with those episodes up to Season 2. So I don't know if I'm going to start Season 2. I have time. As of right now, Sequelathon 3 is done. That's why I didn't redo this episode right away. Because, well, I was in the middle of Sequelathon 3, wanted to keep that going. Sequelathon 3 has ended. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was the last video I did. It's the lowest count at 13. The other ones had 21 and 15. But it works. It works because we're almost at the end of August. I wanted to do this in August, do that in August. I may do Season 2 of Smallville and try to get that done before October. But, yeah. So, here we go. Finally talk about the episode. Season 1. Smallville Season 1, Episode 14. 0. Almost 4 minutes, and we're finally talking about it. So, the episode is about Lex Luthor's past. An incident happened at Club Zero, which they mentioned previously in the episode Rogue, where Sam Phelan first appeared. He does have a cameo appearance here. And that's brought up in the past episode. That's brought up in that episode. And this is where we finally get to, I think there's another episode where someone else mentions it. Or something. No, because then no one else would know about it. But anyway. Yes. So, yeah, we start the episode in mid-res, which is when something starts in the middle of an episode. In this case, it's towards the end of the episode, actually. It goes back 3 days earlier. Excuse me. So, The Flash did that a lot. In the earlier seasons, there was a few episodes, like at least one episode per season, where they did the mid-res thing. But, watching this episode again, I had a thought. So, very interestingly, in this shot, we see this guy asking Lex what happened. We go back 3 years earlier, which when Michael Rosenbaum was talking about this, he said Lex was about 22 years old. So 3 years earlier, he'd have been 19. What was Lex Luthor doing in a club at 19? I don't know. It's, I don't know. But in this club, he's with this woman named Amanda, who I don't know if I mentioned it in the last time I talked about this. I don't really know that video's gone. But she is played by the actress who was Hyde's stripper wife in that 70s show. Check out my Sky TV episode on that 70s show. Yes, I know I forgot to talk about The Circle. I'm eventually going to talk about that 90s show. So I'll mention that in there. I didn't realize until after I published it that, oh shit, I've got to talk about The Circle. We'll get around to it. I want to rewatch that 90s show, but having Netflix issues right now. Anyway, yeah, it's Hyde's stripper wife from Las Vegas. Anyway, he brought her there. He says he brings her to this Club Zero to help celebrate her engagement. They find her fiance, Jude Royce, played by Corin Nemec, who was a guest star in this episode, is with two women. Of course, Amanda freaks out, and he goes to try to explain it to her. There's an incident. He gets mad at he says, do this on purpose. And now it's never really confirmed because Lex never confirms anything. Like, he's always so secretive. He did it on purpose. But he's just like, you did it to yourself. So I think he did bring her on purpose to show her. But in Lex's defense, one, he was doing it to watch out for his friend. Two, he didn't know that it was going to escalate in this way. Jude Royce, what happens next is Jude Royce's fault. He freaks out, stabs Lex in the shoulder, and then there's something happens. There's a gunshot, and Royce is killed. We don't know who fired the gun. It's a mystery episode, so it's kind of filling out stuff. And there's like different stories here as to what happened. All right. You're supposed to be led to believe that it was Lex that fired the gun, but the whole thing. Then we start, the guy calls him a liar, and Lex says, who are you? Don't you recognize me, Lex? He goes into the light, and he goes, you killed me. And Lex has this look like he's shot. Now, I'm sure he was shot that way because it was going to go in the opening of the episode. However, Lex is already aware that there's someone who looks like Jude Royce walking around. He even sees him a couple of times before this. And yet, here he looks surprised. They even go back to it later in the episode. They show a shorter version of the scene. And he still got that look because I think they just reused the shot. And I think he had to look surprised for that because it was going to be at the beginning of the episode. Otherwise, it doesn't really make any sense why they had him do that. And then, in hindsight, once we've already watched the episode, you get back to that. Lex has seen him twice. He should not be surprised about this. And the whole, don't you recognize me? You killed me. And I'm just like, that line doesn't make sense anymore because he's already seen him twice. If it was just, he heard the name Jude Royce, and he's confused. It's not him. Like Kasich, the security guard at the bouncer or whatever. By the way, he pays the bouncer. He pays the bouncer to get in. He pays Kasich to get in. So that explains why he's 19 and able to get in there. Anyway, Kasich tells him he's seen Jude Royce following him everywhere. So that would have been enough. And then get rid of the scene where the guy talks to Lana and just have Lex walk in and look confused. Lex walk in and Lana looks confused and then tells him about Jude Royce. You know, and have it build up to, is it really him? Because we don't see him. You know? By the way, in this scene, when Lex goes in, you know, before this we see him, Cornemic talking to her, you know, whole thing. He comes in and she tells him about it. He goes, where did he go? And she goes, he left just before you did. I watched the scene where he's talking to Kasich. He doesn't come out of that door. We find out later there's a back door, but she never says he went through the back door. So I don't know how they missed each other or what. I was looking behind the scene where he's talking to Kasich to see if you just see him kind of walk out. Sometimes they'll do that, but I couldn't notice anyone that looked like him. Before I keep going, in the B plot, Chloe, there was a school assignment to... I don't know what kind of class it would be. History class, maybe, to find out some things about your fellow classmates. Clark got Lana, Chloe got Clark, and Chloe goes too far. I'm just going to talk about this whole B-plot here. She goes too far and she finds out about Clark's adoption. She starts asking about Clark's adoption, and when no one will give her answer, she starts digging. She finds out that he was adopted through Metropolis United Charities, and it was only open for 6 months, and Clark was the only one adopted, although we find out in season 2 that's not true. There was another person adopted, if I remember correctly. Lionel Luthor's not present in his episode, but he's mentioned a couple times. Daddy's money, whatever. Alright, so back to the talent thing. Lex goes out looking for this Jude Royce lookalike, if anything gets in his car. In the span of... Lex Luthor has only been in... Could only have been in the Talon for like 5 minutes. In the span of 5 minutes, Jude Royce, or another person involved, got into his car, hooked up this thing underneath to blare club music and killer, killer. I don't know how they're able to do it that fast, but okay. I don't know. Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so I'm trying to figure out where the Lex thing goes here. Just watched the episode again. Trying to think of where this part comes in with the... I think it cuts to, it's that night. Clark and Lana are talking about the project. Lex shows up and Lana asks what you were doing, what he's doing there. He said the contractor called him and said he had an estimate, because the contractor was there talking to Lana at the time. The contractor called him, said he had an estimate, wanted to talk to him. They go in, they find a contractor laid out on the floor. He says that he was going through the back door and someone attacked him. That's why he had a key to the back door. I don't know. He's a contractor, I guess, you know. And they find a present on the desk, counter, whatever it is. And it's a severed hand. It's Kasich's hand, alright? But they don't know where it is. We find out later, when the scene where Lex is, for some reason, working out, using a boxing bag, maybe venting his frustrations, I guess. That Kasich never, according to the doorman, Kasich never made it to the apartment building or whatever that he sent him to. Which means that Jude Royce had to have been outside listening to that conversation to know, or his accomplice, which I won't reveal yet, was out there at the time and overheard it. Very possible. They didn't know he was involved. He could just walk by and overheard the conversation or something. I don't know. But I don't know how they know the address. But anyway. And he tells the guy to try to find Amanda. They don't know what happened to her after. He kept out of touch for reasons. It's during this boxing session we get another flashback. Phelan shows up to help him cover up what happened, and he gives the story as after Royce stabbed him, Casey went for his gun. Lex tried to stop him, and he shot Royce. And so Phelan's like, okay, you were never here, you're never involved, your name's gonna be out of the papers, it's fine. And he's like, how? Daddy's money. And then he tells Kasich, do you see what happened? Yeah? Well, you're about to become a very rich man. So he's basically paying off to be quiet. But it's not as simple as that. Don't you think there's other people there, saw Lex Luthor there? Did Daddy's money pay to keep their mouths shut? What about Amanda? They paid her to keep her mouth shut? Although, I guess that doesn't make sense either. Anyway, this is presented as a flashback of him remembering this. And the only thing I think of as to why it's not the truth is that it's what he's telling Phelan. So that's why it's not the truth. So it's just another plot to the story. I don't know. Let me get one of the saddest moments in the thing. So this is when Clark goes back to the school. He finds out about drop the cherries, whatever. He's talking to his dad. They get to a certain point. They're going out to get the cows. He's like, what? He's like, the cows are just over that horizon, just over that hill. We should be hearing them right now. Apparently, there was some Luthor Corp chemicals that spilled and it poisoned the entire field, and all of the cows are dead. Now, of course, this is not Lex's fault. It is Jude Royce's fault. But in hindsight, watching future episodes, I feel like they forget that. Even Clark, I feel like they forget that. Because there's points in future episodes where they talk about that. There's an episode where he gives them the check with the money, paid just for that, and he goes back to the field because I guess that's where the ship landed. But they say it's Miller's field. Their cows are in Miller's field. I don't know. It's confusing. But they seem to refer to the fact that she's like, when he gives the money, he goes, well, money doesn't solve all of Lex Luthor's problems. It wasn't Lex's fault. He's it wasn't completely his fault. You know what I mean? He didn't purposely do that. It was Jude Royce. This is where we get the second appearance of Lex seeing Jude Royce, because Jude Royce shows up when Lex is doing the boxing thing, and that's when Clark shows up to show him the newspaper thing. He hears him. And this is very weird. This is very weird. Because he's standing there talking to him. Clark walks up, hears this, bursts in, and goes, Lex! And then Lex turns his head to see Clark and turns back. Royce is just gone. Does he have super speed? I don't know. It's just very confusing. Anyway. So, Lex says he's going to pay for it. And then, of course, Jonathan Kent is so stubborn. And I wish they wouldn't make him so stubborn about this. He's like, well, that's just like you, isn't it? You think money's going to solve everything. As we find out a few episodes later, he is going to pay for the cattle. He's not trying to do anything else, although he does say he's going to try to purchase the land. I don't know. But, I don't know. Also, I'm gonna go back a little bit to the B plot when Pete is telling Chloe about the story about when they were kids, about how Clark pushed some bully through a door, and his excuse is that the guy was 3 times his size, or 2 times his size, whatever, and he's like, well, we were 6 years old, 2 times our size is 3 feet. Or something like that. Or we were in the 3rd grade. The side is 3 feet. Whatever. It's just very weird. That feels like that should have been the moment that Pete found out. How Pete didn't suspect something after that is beyond me. I don't know. Pete to tell that story and not suspect anything could be an adrenaline. Adrenaline could be a thing, but I don't know. Anyway. We're at the field. Lex is told that the CEP guy or whatever wants to talk to him, and it's Jude Royce. He tases him, and I mentioned this in my original review, or the original, not the original one, but the one that didn't upload. But he gets tased, thrown into the van. How does nobody hear that? The Kents were right there, although conveniently they're no longer in the shot, because before there was Lex's Jeep, the Luther Corp Jeep. This is badass that he drives up in. Then the Kents are over there talking to people, 3 of them. And then when Lex is talking to Jude Royce and he's tased, conveniently, the Kents are no longer there, but you can see the Jeep. I'm like, wait, the Kents should be in that shot. Like, no, you tell me no one sees him get tased or hears him go, ugh, or the sound he makes getting thrown into a van. Nobody hears that. And then nobody seems to notice that Lex Luthor disappears from the field, just disappears. He came in a Luther Corp Jeep. The Jeep is still there. He hasn't left. No one notices. And then Clark says he's trying to call Lex. He's not at the mansion. He's not in his office. He's not answering his cell phone. Something's going on. And then you have... Yeah. Now, Martha is not defending him anymore. She's like, I used to live in Metropolis. It's not as wholesome as you would think, or something like that. Anyway, so Clark goes to talk to Chloe at the Torch, and this scene made me scratch my head. So she was there at the thing taking pictures. She shows him a picture of the CEP guy. And it is verbatim, just a screenshot from earlier of when he took out the sunglasses and looked at Lex. It's just that shot. And I went, that is a screenshot of earlier. That's not even, like, it's like Halloween 4 when they show that picture of Jamie Lee Curtis, it's just a publicity still from the first film. It's supposed to be Laurie Strode, but it's a publicity still from the first film. I don't know. It's, yeah. So, they have an address for this Jude Royce. We're going under the name John Smith. He's not even a CEP guy. And the address leads them not to where Lex and Jude Royce are. No. Leads them to a place where they find Casage's body. We know this because Clark uses his x-ray vision and sees his hand is missing. So it's Kasage. Then he asks the cop there if anyone else is in there, which he says no. The guy looks really sad when he says no anyway. I don't know. Who else were they looking for? That's what he should have said. What do you mean? Who are you looking for? But no, and he's like, you know where Club Zero is? He goes, it was confusing at first, but I think I figured it out. He's like, you're about 6 months too late. It closed down. It used to be a warehouse over on 75th or whatever it was. And I'm like, used to be. Don't you mean it's now, eh? And when they show it, I think it was a warehouse turned into a club, one of those rave things. And it shut down 6 months. So if that was 3 years ago when the flashback took place, it lasted 3 years, or 2.5 years before it shut down, I guess. I don't know. But, yeah, Lex is hanging upside down. And Michael Rosenbaum said on the podcast that he actually had to be upside down. And sometimes he would get a little dizzy, Yeah, I'm sitting there, I'm listening to him talk about this, and I'm like, why didn't they just do like a dolly shot where a reverse shot was upside down or something? But then watching this back, there are scenes where Jude Royce and another person is standing right in front of him when he's upside down. Or when Jude Royce is standing there and Lex is upside down. Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense. So we go back to the thing. He wants the truth, and it's the flashback thing. He says, "You lie." He goes to shoot him like at the opening, and you hear the gunshot in the opening. And when the gunshot happens here, it's actually Jude Royce getting killed, because the mastermind behind the whole thing is actually Amanda's brother. Yes, Amanda's brother, who was in jail, who was in prison at the time that it happened. We find out that Amanda committed suicide because of what happened. And of course, this guy blames Lex. We don't get a name. He's just Amanda's brother. I don't know. And this guy blames Lex, but Lex tells him the truth. Amanda was the one who pulled the trigger and killed Jude. And that's what led her to suicide, because she was so frustrated. Although it took her 2.5 years before or 2 years. It took 2 years for the frustration to get to her and her to do it. So she lasted longer than most people in that stressful situation that can't handle. So, she wasn't weak. It just, you just finally got her, But, yes. So he calls him a liar, and then Clark comes in, because he's found Club Zero, and he comes zooming up there. Lex is knocked down over the banister. There's water there too, somehow. I don't know. And Clark comes in. He pushes a sofa that happens to be there underneath Lex, goes up, knocks the guy out, and then runs back out the door, and then comes in running normally. Lex, Clark, what are you doing here? There seems to be a thing. Or they're like, Clark, that's earlier. Clark, what are you doing here? No, here is, watch out, Clark, there's a guy with a gun. And he's like, with that guy? And they show him knocked out. What happened? I have no idea. And, we never see this guy again. I'm assuming he goes to prison again. But, yeah. And we have a conversation between Clark and Lex about, well, we have the Talon grand opening here. And something I noticed this time watching, it's a coffee shop. Everyone's drinking wine or champagne. I understand it's the grand opening, but everyone's holding like a wine glass. And I'm like, it's a grand opening of a coffee shop and no one's drinking coffee. Not one person. I would be like, I don't drink coffee per se, but I would like, you know what? Give me a cappuccino or something, I only drink coffee at Christmas parties. But, yeah. Clark gives Lana a picture that was his grandfather's, Hiram Kent's, and to put over the counter on the wall to show it is from the Talon, when the Talon opened. So that's all what his grandfather is. There's a conversation that he and Chloe have earlier about, don't you wonder about your parents? And he's like, every single day. Every day of my life or something like that. And he's like, Lex, well, why didn't you, do this? And he goes, well, it really wasn't any Clark's business, but there's no lengths I wouldn't do to protect my friends. That sort of thing. So, yeah. I'm going to give this episode 4.5 Superman logos out of 5. That's right. I almost forgot to do that. Because it is my favorite episode of the season. It's not my favorite episode of the series, but it is my favorite episode of the season. This is good. It's a mystery thing. It kind of wears out once you've already know the mystery. But you go back, it's one of those things where you already know the answer to everything, but you go back, you learn more and more and more, like the mid-res thing, how they treat it like it's a surprise for him to see Jude Royce, but then he's already seen him twice, and so when they go back to this, it's like, no, why is it treated like a surprise? Because it's going to be in the first scene of the episode, so they have to play that up, but I don't know. Maybe this is one of the episodes that a mid-res wouldn't work. It works to a point, but like you could also have done it without it, and it could have worked better. I don't know. I guess maybe for context, we needed to know about the club thing. But maybe, instead of mid-res, you show the flashback of Lex going to the club, and then you play the Smallville theme song, and then you cut to now. That's how you do it. I don't know. But, so what are your thoughts on this episode? 0. Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.